Greetings. It's Bill Fairman, Jonathan Davis, and Wendy Sweet of Carolina
Hello.
Capital Management. Welcome to our show today. Wendy and I are kind of the walking COVID wounded right now. We're both recovering. Wendy has got her halo on.
Yeah.
She's ready to move on.
No, not yet. No.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan.
So I'm going to apologize in advance if I cough and I don't get to the cough button quick enough. Jonathan, I didn't get there quick enough.
Well, and don't forget, guys, that you can share, like, subscribe, click in different places, wherever it is on your screen. Also, there is a comment box, and if you have questions, feel free to put all your questions in there, and we will do our best to get through them all and answer them as coherently as we can.
If that's at all possible, right?
If at all possible.
By the way, we are Carolina Capital Management. Our website is carolinahardmoney.com. If you're interested in borrowing money, click on the Apply Now tab. If you're interested in passive returns, then click on the Investor tab. You did talk about the chat box in case anybody has any questions. We have a great guest today. I will have to mention before we get started, the only good thing about COVID is I lost 8 pounds.
Oh, gosh.
And I didn't have to do any work for it.
You just had to suffer. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
So, Wendy, how's about introducing our awesome guest who I don't think he knows this, but he and I worked at the same company.
Did you really?
Back, Bayview. That's where I got my commercial start, and I know that's where he got his start in notes. So
very, very interesting. Well, Bob Repass is a great guy. He's a brainiac, I guess is a great way to describe him. He works with Eddie Speed in the Note School and Colonial Funding. It's another great fund that they have, and they're the top people in the note space. If you're buying and selling notes and want to learn anything about notes, you need to be connected to these guys because I forget how many deals they said they've done, and I'm sure Bob will talk about it, but it's like thousands and thousands and thousands. It's just amazing what they've been able to accomplish. So Bob, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Wendy, Bill, Jonathan, I'm glad to be with you guys and super excited. And Bill, I do have to admit, I was not aware of the fact that we never crossed paths at the same time at Bayview. But I was there for 12 years and learned a lot and did a lot. So glad to be with you guys today.
Bayview is quite a company. They have launched many careers out of that place, and thankful that I had the opportunity to work there.
Yeah, it's funny. Before I worked at Bayview, I worked at the Associates here in Dallas. And the Associates in Dallas has the same reputation as Bayview. Everybody you run into across the industry at one point worked at the Associates. So, I've been fortunate enough to work at two of the places that basically train everybody, and then they either stay with them for a while or go on to better, greener pastures. So I'm glad to be with you guys, and I'm happy to talk about Note Expo that we have coming up as well.
Awesome. It is such a small world in this space that we're in, isn't it?
Yeah. It is. And I know I've seen you guys at various trade shows where our focus was raising capital, meeting with accredited investors and so forth. So we've got to spend some time to get to know each other and talk about what your fund offers and what our Colonial Fund offers. And it is a small world.
It really is. And a lot of people say, why would you have somebody that could be your competition on your podcast? And I think that's the funniest question ever. Why would you not want to have a group of awesome people around you that are all going for the same goal then operate from scarcity and not share what you know and who you know, the connections and that kind of thing. So we are thrilled to have you here, and we want to hear about the expo that's coming up. I've heard about it for years. I've been to it actually a couple times, and it gets bigger and bigger. And this year, of course, it's odd because it's online. So tell us what's going on.
Well, I wanted to go back a little bit to your comment there about competition, because that is part of the genesis of Note Expo. We look at it more as, counterparties, right? Because there's a lot of people where on the surface may look like they're a competitor of Colonials or even of Note Schools. Everybody's got a coaching program, or everybody's, got some educational piece. But like you said, surrounding yourself with people prepares you for opportunities. You may be able to do business together. There may be somebody that I know that is a client of mine that I can't fill their need at this particular time, that I could refer to you guys or somebody else. So we've always tried to build an inclusive atmosphere and deal as it more as clients and counterparties, as opposed to, competitors. And like you said, this is my world and stay out of it and that kind of stuff. So just as a little background, I started in the seller finance and discounted note space way back in 1990. I started with a company based out of Spokane, Washington called Metropolitan Mortgage and Securities. And I worked with them, and it was at that time that I met Eddie Speed. Eddie was brokering deals to Metropolitan, and I didn't deal directly with Eddie at the time, but I met him at various events and got to know him pretty well. And then in 1997, I moved to Dallas to come to work for the associates. And that's when I started dealing face-to-face with Eddie. Eddie would aggregate loans and sell them to us, and we actually sat on the opposite side of the desk for many, many years. And that continued when I joined Bayview in 2000. And then in 2012, I left Bayview, and Eddie was looking to start a capital fund in addition to his Note School and Colonial Funding trade desk. So I came on board with him, and we created Colonial Capital Management and started our family of capital funds. Right now we have a Colonial Impact 2 capital fund where we have about $20 million under management. We buy and sell mostly residential notes, anywhere from mom and pop seller finance notes all the way through scratch and dent, bank originated, reperforming loans, and so forth. So we are very active in the note space. Not only do we have a very active educational program under Note School, but we are in the day-to-day business. So this year we'll have the 7th annual Note Expo. So when I first came on board with Eddie, we had known each other through the years, and we had gone to various trade shows, and we realized that there really needed to be the industry event where everybody could come across, like I mentioned a minute ago, whether we're perceived as being competitors or well, we wanted industry leaders. We wanted everybody who was in the note business, that if you surround yourself with people that are active and knowledgeable in the note space, you're going to pick up some nuggets on what you can do to implement your business. So we started this 7 years ago. And as you said, it's one of the biggest trade shows out there. We typically have over 500 attendees, but 2020 is the year of COVID. And after much discussion and thinking and praying about it, we decided, we have to go virtual this year. So Note Expo 2020 will be all virtual. It takes place a week from tomorrow, which is November 6th. And it runs for 2 days, November 6th and 7th. So you can go to notexpo.com and register today. There's still time to do that. And if you enter the promo code virtual, all capitals, you'll receive a discount for doing so. So Wendy, I know I'm excited that you're going to be on the agenda this year. And we're looking forward to having you participate with us as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. I'm honored that you guys even invited me. That's awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. What kind of a platform are you guys using when you put this virtual event on?
Well, it's really interesting because, believe it or not, there were several options to choose from, right? I mean, at first we were like, oh, we're going to have to go Zoom and figure that out because that's all you heard about during the work from home thing. But we researched some. We reached out to some folks that were also doing some virtual conferences to find out how their experience went with various vendors. And we selected a platform called Hub, HUBB. And I mean, I have to admit, it's going to be pretty slick.
Is that part of HubSpot?
Yeah, it's going to be where you walk in and it's, it looks like you're walking into a trade show. I mean, it's going to have virtual exhibit booths that are going to have the ability to do Zoom and live chats with the exhibitors and their staff. And then we're going to have our presentations virtually, but it'll be sit down or panel discussions or even general sessions. So we've got several keynotes. Eddie is going to do a keynote. I believe Matt Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
Matt's going to do a keynote on how important it is to invest in people. And you know how Matt is. He's not just going to stand still behind the camera. He's pretty energetic. So I think he'll fire up everybody and get them inspired. And then one thing we're going to do this year that we haven't done in the past that I'm really excited about, and this is where Wendy comes in, is we have reached out across the industry and selected leaders and experts from various parts of the business, and we're going to sit down with them and do a one-on-one conversation. So it's not going to be like an interview like you're on 60 Minutes or something like that. This is going to be like we're sitting around having a cup of coffee, and we're going to sit down and just talk about 2020. How have you positioned your company heading into 2021? What kind of challenges or opportunities are you that are on your radar, and what are you looking forward to? So, Wendy, I know you're going to be doing one with one of our co-hosts, Brian Lochner, and Brian's a great guy, and I think you guys will have a great chat. But I think we're going to do 15 or 16 of these one-on-ones. Wow. So just being able to sit down and watch. I'm going to interview some folks. Eddie's interviewing some folks, Brian, and then our Joe Varnador is also. So we've broken them up into like 4 categories, and it covers everything from your world of hard money lending to people that run capital funds as well, to service providers. I'm bringing in an expert who Bill also used to work at Bayview and Interbay back in the day, Scott Berry, who is going to be, he now works at Trepp Data Analytics, a huge commercial data aggregator. We're going to talk about some opportunities that are coming along in the commercial note space. So I'm excited about that. Traditionally, we focus on residential, but as you guys probably know, with the pandemic going on, some of these commercial sectors, especially retail and hospitality, are just getting beat down big time, especially from a cash flow perspective. So we're going to talk a little bit about the commercial note space. We've got some fund administration and accountants that are going to come on. And of course, our friend Jeff Watson is going to be participating along with Nathan Long from Quest Trust Company and talk about investing in self-directed IRAs. So, I mean, look, 2 days, if you want to learn everything there is to know about passive investments, the note space, entrepreneurship, you need to sign up for Note Expo and take 2 days, sit down, listen. As you register, you'll also have 30 days access to the recordings afterwards. So I think it's going to be a wealth of information.
That's awesome. And I actually have a Quest shirt on there.
Well, we're going to have to get you a Note Expo shirt to wear too.
Exactly right.
There we go.
That's exactly right. It's amazing the depth of information that you're covering in this. And I think what's really key too is you are speaking with people from across the nation in different markets across the nation and asking them what they're doing to control this whole COVID crazy event that's been going on for all of us, because I think everybody has taken this from a different approach, and hearing what all the options are out there is really, really important. When we run into trouble, so many of us kind of close off from others and bury our issues or our troubles instead of reaching out and sharing with other people, because we're all going through it.
Yep.
And it's important that you're giving people the option to hear all the different things that people are able to do to turn this lemon into a true cup of lemonade, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing we've always had at Note Expo is we've had people come in from all over the country, right? And to your point, now they've kind of been shut down, and they've almost been, I don't want to say hibernating, but they've almost withdrawn into their own little community there, and they really only know what's going on in Texas or California or Ohio or wherever they may be located. And now through virtual Note Expo, they're going to be able to hear from folks that are doing business in the Northeast, the Southwest, the Carolinas, like you guys, and they're going to know what struggles and what opportunities people see and that they've overcome. And that is exciting. And on one hand, it's going to be great educational knowledge. And on the other hand, I think it's going to be motivating and inspirational, because they're going to see folks that have had to adjust their businesses in order to survive. And they're going to get some great tips on what people did. And they're going to say, hey, that's something that I can do. I can shift my business around. And some people may need to be conservative and dial back. And some people may be sitting on some cash thinking, I can take advantage of some of these opportunities that are coming. And if they follow their model and they don't get overly aggressive and do something crazy, there are some opportunities to generate some good wealth, I think, going into 2021.
I agree with you 100%. One of the things I think we need to take note of is that what we're going through now is completely different from what happened in 2007, 2008. And I'm just wondering how differently things are going to look, rather than seeing as many foreclosures as we saw, now because of what banks have been through. Do you think that there are going to be more notes available rather than REOs? I mean, how do you think that's going to come out in the wash? What are your thoughts?
Well, you're right. I mean, this is, completely different than 08, 09. That was a mortgage crisis where people just threw money at anybody that wanted a property because they just thought the values were going to escalate forever. Now, the recovery over the last 10 years or so, there's not as many underwater properties. So people have some equity in their properties. So even if they get to a point of distress where they can't make their mortgage anymore, they can liquidate their property and still probably get out of that and move on to, another lower, least expensive. This is more of a health crisis, right? And as I mentioned a minute ago, I think it really impacts the commercial world because a lot of businesses have had a shutdown. I don't think we're going to see a flood of REO. As you guys know, there's been federal and state foreclosure and eviction moratoriums that are in place. Federal have expired now. A lot of the states are expiring or getting ready to expire. But what are the banks going to do? There's 3 million people right now that are in forbearance plans between Freddie and Fannie and FHA and VA. There's probably another 4 million that are delinquent that are not in forbearance plan, where all they have to do is really raise their hand in order to get a forbearance plan. To your point, what are the banks going to do as far as their balance sheets? Are they going to keep these loans on their balance sheets, or are they going to liquidate them as semi-performing or non-performing loans, recoup their capital, and move on? I think the key to that is once you see banks starting to write down assets, charge them off on their books, so to speak, they basically go ahead and take the loss now. So they could turn around in the first quarter, second quarter of 2021 and sell those assets. And believe it or not, when they sell a loan that they've already charged off on their books, they get to count that money as income next time. So I think for the most part, if they pursue foreclosure, it'll be on the properties that they think they have the biggest amount of equity cushion in there with the borrower. And I think they'll encourage the borrower to try to sell the property before they have to go through the foreclosure process. I don't think they want the headline risk of being the ones who foreclosed on people during or immediately after a pandemic.
Right. Do you think this is going to open up more opportunity for second position notes, since there's so much equity, so much more equity in properties now than it was in 08, 09?
I think so. I think that's an opportunity that people need to have on their radar. It's funny, if you look at the statistics now, that if you're going to get a loan at Fannie or Freddie, I think the last stat that came out was the average customer had to put 19% down, and the average loan size was $370,000. So you can do the math on what roughly 20% down is on a 37 or a $370,000 property. You got to have almost 80 grand in cash to put down, right? So what are you gonna do if you don't have that much cash? That's gonna open up an opportunity for seconds. It may open up an opportunity for some, seller financing instead of traditional bank financing, and that may be broken down into a first and a second. To borrowers that for no other reason just don't have the down. They may have great credit score, and they may have a great debt to income ratio, but they don't have 80 grand, to put down. So they're what we refer to as a penalty box buyer. They're put in a penalty box, but for no other reason than they just don't have that much cash to put down. So I think there was a question on what a second position was, if I saw that pop up on the screen. Obviously, there's a first lien and a second lien, a mortgage. So if you're buying a property and let's say that it's sold for $100,000 and you have $10,000 to put down out of that 90, you may do a first position of 70 and a second mortgage behind that for $20,000. And then you have a first and a second.
So Bob, we've been in the mortgage and investing business for years and years, and thanks to Scott for reminding us that not everybody knows what a note is. So give me your crayon version of what a note is. Now, I love the way Eddie does it on his PowerPoint, but you don't have to go that far.
Well, Eddie's PowerPoint tells you that everybody knows what a note is if you've ever written a check, right? It's just pretty much paid to the order of. It is a promise to pay. That's why it's called the promissory note. So, Bill, if I'm going to borrow money from you to rehab a house and sell it, I'm going to borrow $50,000 and I'm going to sign a promissory note that I am going to pay you back over whatever the specific terms are, whether it's going to be a 30-year mortgage or a 6-month hard money loan, and I'm going to pay you per those terms. You're going to secure that loan by a mortgage on the collateral, whether it's a house, commercial property, whatever I'm borrowing the money against. And if for some reason I'm unable to perform on that note, you have the ability to foreclose on that property that you have as collateral.
Yeah. And just
how's that for Note 101?
That's good.
All right.
We just want to say, though, a note in and of itself is an unsecured instrument. You have to have a mortgage or a deed of trust to make it a secured instrument. So you have to tying it to a physical property. So a note in itself is just a promise to pay. Tying it with a mortgage or a deed of trust, some kind of security instrument, means it's a promise to pay. And if I don't, here's this asset that you can have. Right. Exactly, Jonathan. I mean, the same thing when you buy a car, right? I mean, you buy a car, you sign a note. If you don't pay, they come repossess your car. So if you're, a passive investor and you have a good relationship with a business owner and he just needs $20,000 for his business and you want to do an unsecured loan against him, you can do that if you wish, but we prefer to deal in the real estate secured notes, right? We take back a mortgage or a deed of trust, depending on whatever state it is, and we have that as collateral for that promissory note.
Yeah. And we're all in this industry, we're biased. We would much prefer to control the asset without having the responsibility for owning the asset. That's why we're all in the note business in some shape or form. We write new notes. You're in the business of acquiring existing notes, and then also at the same time with the seller held seconds. If you're the owner of the property, you're obviously originating those notes as well, but you're in such a much better position when you're the note holder, as far as I'm concerned, because again, you don't have the worries of the tenants, the toilets, the trash, the insurance, the taxes. It's not your responsibility. You're still creating passive income through the payments, and you don't have all the hassles, and you're in a much better position than the owner of the property because you're in it for much less than they are. So all the risk is on the borrower. Yeah, Eddie likes to say, would you rather be the bank or the landlord, right? So as you own the mortgage, you're in the same position as a bank that would hold the mortgage.
Nobody calls us up in the middle of the night and tell us the air conditioner went out and we have to go fix it.
Oh, and you don't have an attorney calling you up and saying, "Oh, my client slipped and fell on your property." That's not my property; it's theirs.
Exactly.
You know, it sounds like it can get complicated quick in the note space, mortgage space. So who can invest in these notes? Who can take advantage of this? Do you have to have education through finance, or who can we I guess who can take advantage of this through Note School or through Note Expo?
Right. Really, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur or a real estate investor and you want to get become part of the note industry, obviously there's educational programs out there. We have them at Note School. You can go to noteschool.com. We have everything from online training to one-day training, 3-day training classes, and so forth. So we have those. You can attend industry trade shows like Note Expo, right? And I really think, obviously, I think it's important to go to a formal training class, like a 3-day class at Note School, right? But that's only going to be the tip of the iceberg. You have to surround yourself with folks, network that you can rely on for advice and support. To Wendy's point earlier about, people being from all over the country. Well, we encourage people to buy assets all over the country, not just in their own backyard. So you go to an event like Note Expo, you're going to meet service providers where if I'm in Texas and I buy an asset in Charlotte, North Carolina, that I can outsource that and have boots on the ground there. I don't have to drive to Charlotte to go check out a property, right? So you build that network. We have folks that are retired from corporate jobs that are now investing in notes. They're using their self-directed IRA. We have real estate investors that are doing fix and flips and buy and hold, and then they also added notes to their business. So we kind of cover the spectrum on who wants to get into the note business. And an event like Note Expo, we're going to show you all different kind of paths, and it's not just going to be, you're just going to hear us talk. You're going to hear 20 people talk from across the industry about their experiences. And that's the beauty of going to an event like that, where you can learn from each other and you're going to have their information to do future business, right? If I have something in Wendy or Bill's neck of the woods, I can always call them up and say, "Hey guys, I got some issue. Can you know somebody I can have right by my property?" Or I've got somebody looking for property in your market. I want to refer them to you. Can you handle them? And, we'll work out a deal where I'll refer them, to them to take care of that person's needs. So it's all give and take. My only advice to everybody is, look, when you're building a relationship, it's always relationships over transactions. Don't try to do one transaction and, not build a long-term relationship, because that is a give and take relationship. If you're in a give and give and all you do is take from people, that relationship's not going to last for a long time.
You got that right. I remember when I first really started learning about Note School and the note business, and I had to sit and listen to Eddie 3 times before I got it. And I'm in the note business.
Now, is that because of Eddie's accent?
Well, let me tell you something. That's my Eddie impression.
Anybody who has met Eddie has an Eddie impression, or they have an Eddieism, that one of his famous quotes, right? Like, "Oh, well, I'm out of soap." So I guess that means it's about time to wrap up, or he's got them all. This ain't my first rodeo.
He is so funny. But when I first got into learning about this, I assumed that you had to have a lot of money to be a note buyer. And I quickly learned that that's absolutely not true. And I learned that through Note School.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that get started in the note business, and in addition to wanting to generate wealth, immediately they need to generate income. And more specifically, they need to generate fee income. So, we have programs basically where you can flip a note just like you would flip a house. You can find somebody that has a note to sell. You can find an investor like Colonial that's looking to buy it, and then you can make a fee in the middle for hooking the two of us together. Wow. And you can do that. You can continue to do that as you generate income, and then sooner or later you get to a point where you flip a note, you buy a note, you flip a note, you buy one, and then you're building up your own portfolio as well.
I love it. And I love how you can just chop it off and sell off partials, the front end, the back end, and I've always tell people whenever I'm doing any kind of a speaking engagement, I always tell people that if you understand notes and how they work, because it's a huge puzzle, but if you can get to know notes, there will be no opportunity that will come across your desk that you can't take advantage of in some way, shape, or form. And I don't mean take advantage, but I mean you can't participate in. There's always a way to work it out if you understand the note business.
Yeah, that's a great point, because a lot of people spend a lot of money on marketing and they
Mm.
generate leads, and then all of a sudden they throw 8 of the 10 leads in the trash can because they don't know what to do with them, right? There's ways to take everything that comes across your desk and either take advantage, to use your term, yourself if it fits your box and your buying parameters, or make money off of it as fee income by sending it to somebody and kind of brokering that transaction. One thing that I do want to kind of put a little plug in, look, there's lots of ways to learn the note space, and we cover a lot of it at Note Expo and different strategies. But I can tell you the one thing that you mentioned at Note School with Eddie is probably the most creative person as far as notes that I've known over the last 30 years, right? Typically, we sit back and we talk about, well, we buy loans from banks and we buy loans, one-off mom and pop seller finance. And those are typically, normal transactions. But there are creative strategies, whether you're buying in your self-directed IRA, and as you mentioned earlier, selling a partial, which is part of the loan for a certain period of time, and then it reverts back to you. Or if you're doing creative financing where you can buy properties on terms and have that seller take back seller financing at terms that are favorable to you, so you can own that asset and then resell it. So the creativity piece is what I think we cover at Note School as well as Note Expo. I know Nathan Long from Quest is going to talk a lot about his creative strategies investing in IRAs, as is Jeff Watson. So we have some creative geniuses, for lack of a better term, that'll be participating as well. But if you want to go beyond just the nuts and bolts of buying and selling notes and get to the creative part, then I encourage you to go to noteschool.com and dig a little deeper into us.
Awesome. That's awesome. Can you give us a little more detail of how they can sign up, about how long is the day going to be? What can they expect?
At Note Expo, it's Friday and Saturday. We're going to kick off each day at 9 o'clock Central Time, and we'll go to 5:30 on Friday and 5 o'clock on Saturday. And one thing that's really good that we always do typically in person, but we're going to do virtual via our hub website, is we're going to have virtual networking breaks, morning breaks, afternoon breaks, and lunch breaks, where you can go to the exhibit hall and interact with the exhibitors, vendors, sponsors. But at 5:30, we're going to have a virtual happy hour where we'll all be able to get together, and everybody will be able to interact with other attendees as well, which is what you usually do at a trade show. You kind of sit around, have a beer or a cup of coffee, and sit together at lunch, and you get to know somebody from either your market that you weren't aware of or some other market across the country that you can rely on, and you build those relationships. So we're still going to have that, but it's going to be virtual. But we're going to have a virtual happy hour where we get together and folks can interact with other attendees, some of the speakers, some of the other experts in the industry. So we're really looking forward to that. Again, just go to notexpo.com, and there'll be a place for a promo code, and you just type in virtual, make sure it's all caps, and you'll receive $100 off registration. And
wow.
Like I said, it starts a week from tomorrow. So it starts November 6th. And it runs on Friday and Saturday from 9 basically to 5:30 each day. And we have it, like I said, in addition to the breaks, everything else is jam-packed with content. But you're going to hear some of the top leaders across not only the note space, but the real estate investing space as well.
That's awesome.
Well, the great thing about having a virtual happy hour is that the alcohol is a lot less expensive.
And you can always turn your camera off.
That's right. And you get to drink what you like, not what they have available. We did have a question here from Scott again. He was wondering if all the income that you receive from notes is interest. And I know you covered a little bit about that, but the answer to that is not necessarily. You would think it would be the interest, but there is interest, but there's other ways to make money with notes as well.
Yeah. And like I said, there's different ways to account for it. Obviously, when you buy the loan, you're going to get the principal and interest payments coming to you. So you're going to recoup some of the principal you spent in getting that asset. You're going to receive the interest as well. And then you can, like you said, there's different strategies on what you can do with that money as you collect it. And actually, we have our fund accountant and auditor that's going to be on talking about different strategies to take advantage of. As you guys know, running a fund, sometimes you run into, phantom income, phantom losses, a little gap accounting, and some of that just gets everybody's head spinning. But we will try to break it down on a level that the audience can kind of wrap their arms around with, and at least be able to go down the road afterwards and follow up to get more details.
Yeah, it's funny. The new tax law in 2017, which really didn't take effect until the 2019 tax year, reclassified passive income through interest as non-passive income, and that really freaked out a lot of IRA people. That said, owning a note and receiving the vast majority of the income through a fund, being from interest and loan fees, is still not going to trigger the UBIT tax that people are worried about. I think notes are still the best way to invest in your IRA. One of the problems that we've always had with government is that when they write a law, they tend to leave too much open for interpretation. But from the folks that I've spoken with that are familiar with IRS folks, they are not very concerned about the reclassification of passive and the non-passive income. So I'm sorry I got into the weeds with that, but I have had some questions about that, and I have spoken with several CPAs and people that are familiar with IRA tax. Again, I'm not a tax attorney or a CPA. Consult with your own.
There you go. That's our typical disclaimer.
That's exactly right.
We do not give tax or accounting advice. We can connect you with some experts that you can reach out to for that. But other than that, that's all we do is give some direction.
That's right. And I think that's probably the final best point to end this with is the networking that you will get from this event. You can't pay for it. It's absolutely priceless because there's such a variety of people that will be here and will be able to help you and connect you or direct you to the right folks that you need to be speaking with.
Yeah,
I agree. Well said, Wendy.
I was going to say, yes, you can pay for it, and it's preferred to be paid for. However, you're getting a lot more value out of it than the actual price.
Right. And, I always say it to people that go to any of these events, whether virtual or whether they're live. The people that you meet when you go to events like this are people that may 2 years down the road end up being the best friends you ever had. And maintaining those relationships, growing them, it's so important to just not, blow it off, throw the business cards in your desk or by the trash and not mess with them. It's really, really important to connect and stay connected, even if it's just a quarterly, hey, how you doing? Was wondering how your business is going. Something simple just to keep in touch with people, because you will have an opportunity to deal with everyone you meet at some point.
Yep, I totally agree. And that was part of the atmosphere we like to create at Note Expo, is just to give you a chance to connect or even reconnect with folks. Sometimes it's just once a year. Maybe that's the only time you really get to sit down and talk with someone. But yeah, I mean, I do business today with people that I've been doing business with for 20 or 30 years. And you may not hear from them for a year or for 6 months, and all of a sudden they get a deal come across and they give you a call and it's like, hey, I think this is something that'll fit what you guys are doing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Bob, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share what's going on at the Note Expo. Again, if you want to get signed up for this, you just go to notexpo.com. Make sure you type in the word virtual, all caps, to get your $100 discount. That's awesome.
Yep.
That you're offering that. And if I remember, you said that you can see the recordings for 30 days afterwards. Is that what I remember hearing?
Yes, that's correct. So
That's
you'll have access to those, so you can rewatch the ones that you may have gotten a little bit more down in the weeds and details, and you might need. But let me rewind that and watch that again. So do that, and guys, I appreciate you having me on there. Stay strong, get well, and Wendy, I'm looking forward to seeing your interview and the challenges and opportunities that you guys see coming down the pike. So I look forward to seeing you guys at Note Expo and hopefully all your viewers as well. So thanks again for having me on, and I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So Bob, hang out in the green room here for a few minutes as we close out the show. Thanks everyone for joining us. My name is Bill Fairman. That's Jonathan Davis and Wendy Sweet. We are Carolina Capital Management. Our website is carolinahardmoney.com. If you're a passive investor looking for passive returns, click on the investor tab. If you're a borrower looking to borrow money, then click on the apply now tab. Don't forget to share, subscribe. I didn't know there was a bell, but apparently there's a bell, like all that kind of stuff. We're going to, pardon me once again, the Walking Wounded. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we'll be in a little bit better shape.
Yeah.
That's right.
Y'all have a great day.